Hello, everyone. I'm excited to have basically a world premiere of a live tracking system exploits that I found about a year ago. It was a lot of fun to find it, and I'm excited to share it with you today. What is live tracking? It's basically when you open like your Mercedes or Toyota app and you want to know where your car is. You just open the app and look, there it is. It's across the street or in your garage. But what if you could see everyone else's car too? That would open the door to like stalking, robbery, etc. That type of issue, so you want to try and avoid exploits like that. So I'm going to walk you through how I found a major exploit in a major automaker, and that allowed me to real-time track 60,000 heavy trucks around the world. Basically, this system is like a mainframe where it allowed you to track all the trucks, not just yours, that you had your own driveway or whatever. Next slide. So a bit about me. I've always had an interest in like hacking, specifically with video games, like console games, Xbox, Game Boy, stuff like that. Pokemon, Halo, and Call of Duty were my games of choice that I mess around with. Those are a lot of fun, especially when I can show the exploits to people in school that I was classmates with. So had a bit of a reputation back in the high school days. And eventually, once that was all binary exploitation, not like web or API hacking. But since everything's online nowadays, I wanted to just pivot a bit into APIs and web hacking to see if I'd be into it and if there's anything fun to be had, if there's any fun to be had there. So I decided to try it. And about last year, I decided to try my hand at automotive hacking. And I chose Toyota and Honda as my first two of choice because my family owns Toyota cars. We love them to death, and they're very reliable. And a friend owns a Honda, so I picked those two. I scouted their domains, and I was very successful in finding some pretty major issues, as you can see on the right side here, where some of my exploits got basically front page news, and that was definitely a very humbling experience. And after that, I thought, okay, this is something I can maybe make a career out of. So I continued. After these press articles came in, I got a lot of job interviews, of course, and one of those was Traceable. And I found it to be a great fit and get to work with great people every day on other automotive exploits as well, and beyond that as well. It's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it every day. So when I started Traceable, my main goal was to continue the my trend of finding issues in major automakers because I started Traceable shortly after some of the major exploits came to press time. So I found one of the major issues I found was in late 2023, I found that you could do a CT log scanning to find a lot of domains for various automakers. So the example I have here is from Mercedes-Benz, which is not the automaker being targeted today. I can't tell you who is being targeted today, unfortunately. But the certificate transparency logs basically supercharge the process of finding vulnerabilities for me because you could just plug in a root domain and the logs would show you like thousands and thousands of subdomains. So you just kind of go through this one by one, see which ones load, see which ones might look interesting, and you just kind of peek a bit to see if there's anything interesting inside. And that's how I found this particular vulnerability. So the vulnerability in question, I'll tell you a bit about it. The certificate transparency logs revealed an internal web app basically like 5 subdomains deep. So you have like the main domain like automaker.com, and then you have like 5 subdomains in front of that. So it's pretty internal, pretty obscure. And when you go to it, you basically have to enter your corporate login details. And what that means is if you weren't an employee of the automaker, you would not be able to get in. And the kicker is there's no registration. So unless you're willing to interview with the automaker to get an employee account, you're kind of stuck. But that wasn't the end, at least not for me. So you can see how I kind of illustrated that the blockage was not really effective in this case. In the end result was you could track almost 60,000 trucks across the world. So let's dig into the details. So the first matter of business when you're on the website's homepage is just simple. Right-click and view the source code. And you can just do that in Chrome, Firefox, or whatever browser you want to use. And for me, I'm a bit of a JavaScript expert because I found JavaScript to have all the insane goodies like API keys, API URLs, and just various interesting things inside. So in this particular case, the bottom of the index HTML page had all the custom code. The top part is not particularly interesting because that's just third-party scripts that they use, like for table sorting and all that in Google Maps. That's not important. You just want to skip all that. The second block, you can kind of see there's some API URL scripts and an app JavaScript file. And the JavaScript file at the very top ended up being the most interesting because it had the login handler. So basically, the login of the web app worked like this. You would log in, and an access token would be returned. It was put by a query parameter at the top in the URL. So when the app reloads, it will look for that token in the URL. And then it would send an API request to get some user information from that token through an API call. But it turns out that call was optional. So you could put a fake token in, and the API call would fail, but it would not redirect you to like an error page or anything. It would just redirect you to the dashboard. So the simple trick was to just append an access token to the end of the URL, like at the bottom example I have here. And once you do that, you basically got straight in. You got full access. It's not like you could do a lot except view the truck details, but the point of the system was to live vehicle tracking, so that was enough for me. So the dashboard showed you a simple overview of all the number of trucks and how many are having trouble. It turns out that in this case, a lot are having trouble, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean they're broken down. That just means they have like a DTC code, which could be something benign, like topping up engine oil, or say it could be a breakdown. So just because you see 34,000 trucks here in the red doesn't mean they're broken down. It just means it's probably time for their next service appointment. So in the map section, you could see all the trucks around the world. This is where you can actually do the tracking. The trucks are predominantly located in Japan, but there's also some in South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and a few more you can see in the picture here. You can drill down really deep, like in these examples here. So if you zoom all the way down, you can click on individual truck details and see details about them, like how fast they're going, where they're heading, and if they're having any trouble. So the top one shows you a real-time tracking result for a truck going down an expressway in Japan. The bottom one shows you a truck that looks like it could be broken down at a 7-Eleven. So hopefully they're getting something good to eat in there while they're waiting for the tow truck or something. And you could just do this for every truck at all the 60,000 trucks. You can see where they're heading and where they are and what the status is. So with that in mind, being able to track trucks is one thing, but how is that useful and like what's bad about it? So I thought about this scenario. Imagine a bad guy wants to make a big robbery. So what if he looks on the map at a major jewelry warehouse or distributor, and he looks for a truck that's there potentially loading up, and he watches that truck, and he waits until like maybe goes to like an overnight gas station or somewhere for a break, and that's the window where the bad guy can just go and basically steal the contents of the truck. So this is only one real world impact scenario, but there's others like stalking a relative or an ex. It's not like they'd be dropping a heavy truck, but there's this could apply in other automakers too that are more consumer oriented. So this is definitely you should definitely secure your live tracking APIs. So now getting into the actual technical details of what went wrong here. So if Fiddler's a web debugger that I usually use to capture all the API traffic when I visit web apps. It's very convenient. You can download it for free on Telerik.com. So when I looked at the traffic of the sites, there's basically one central API endpoint that returned all the details to the trucks, and their response is like 1 MB. And for those who aren't familiar with web responses, that's a big response. Usually, you don't want to return that much data in one response because it's slow, and this API was pretty slow. So what happened here was normally you want to pass an authorization header here at the top. That's a request. So when you logged in, you got the access token, and if this was properly designed, you would pass that here through the header, and the API server would check that before returning anything to make sure you're authenticated and you can access the data. But that was not the case. So you get to specify the countries you wanted to view the live tracking data of, and they will return everything. You can see like here, there's a VIN number, IDs, the trouble codes, how many miles are on the odometer, stuff like that. So, and basically the map basically ingested all this and displayed the latitude and longitude on the map section. And that's what you were able to see previously on the last slides. So it converted all that data into these points on Google Maps. So how was this resolved? The Automaker had a dedicated security inbox, and I reported it to them. Unfortunately, they never really responded to it. They responded like months later after many follow-ups, which was a bit disappointing because when I reported issues to like Toyota, Honda, and others, they were very fast. So for this to be such a slow resolution is definitely an outlier and is not typical. Usually the major automakers are very responsive and reactive to security issues. So if you're looking to report issues to automakers, do not be discouraged by this one case. Like if you find a Toyota or Honda vulnerability, they're gonna care about it. So don't be discouraged. Eventually, the fix was to just take the site down. They didn't want to fix the authorization or deal with that even. They just shut it down. So you cannot view the site or get any of the API responses back through that one endpoint. And this is just one of many similar issues I found in the automotive space. When you design an app in JavaScript, you basically give the world all your APIs, and that could contain a lot of sensitive admin APIs and other things you don't want to give out. But a lot of developers do not realize they're giving all this away for free, because when you server-side render an app, you kind of hide the important details behind the web server. But since this is a client-side app, they basically gave everything away for free. So the recommendation here is to just, when you're designing a JavaScript app and giving all your APIs out, make sure they're all secure. Assume that even if there's login screen in front of the page that actually uses the APIs, always assume someone's going to try and get around that and actually get at the data. And if you're an Angular or React developer, these are the most common frameworks that I see that are vulnerable. You want to make sure that there's proper auth guards and authorizations in place so that these issues cannot occur. No, that's a bit short, but that's pretty much the gist of the vulnerability. I thought it was really exciting. It was pretty thrilling to be able to track that many trucks around the world. And I just released a brand new automotive research blog. It contains more details about this, and also another one that I found last year where I go deep into the exploits of a fleet management system for another major automaker, and that basically lets you download all the personal information for everyone using that system. So I have a link here if you want to check that out, or you can just scan that QR code if you have your phone handy. And if you have any questions or comments about this presentation, feel free to email me here.